cast my eyes over the sweep of my life up to now, I see my whole adulthood in the long shadow of depression. The shadow starts right on the brink of my grown-up life. I was studying at Columbia University to become a clinical social worker. I worked like a maniac, doing everything required, everything optional, and even more work that I assigned to myself. The rest of the time I slept. At first, I didn't notice the change. Then, things got worse. I always hated waking up, but slowly it was turning into something deeper. It was less like I didn't want to wake up, and more like I couldn't. I didn't feel tired, but I had no energy. I didn't feel sleepy, but I would have welcomed sleep with open arms. I had the sensation of a huge weight, invisible but gigantic, pressing down on me, almost crushing me into the bed and pinning me there. The next second, my heart would start pounding like crazy, and I would jerk myself upright and throw off the weight, heaving breath until the panic faded. And then I would get up and do what I had to do. I woke up with this terror every day. It felt like the universe was closing in on me. On top of that, I started isolating myself. And the panic got worse. By the end of my first semester, I decided to see a therapist. I found a nice and well-intentioned white guy. Every week for 9 months, we talked, mainly about schoolwork and my daily routine, because I never once felt safe to talk about what was really bothering me, my obsessive working, my constant sleeping, and my chronic fear. Deep down, I think I couldn't shake messages from my childhood like,
"Keep your feelings to yourself. Don't air your dirty laundry, especially in front of white folks."
In the end, my therapist described me.
"You seem guarded, but on top of things."
And I'm sorry to say that his shallow reading of my symptoms satisfied me. I didn't know at the time that misdiagnosing depression in Black patients is routine, that our strong personal style on top of beliefs that we can handle anything often makes white professionals miss how much pain or anguish we're in. I was no exception. My therapist had misdiagnosed me by a long shot. Finally, I reached a breaking point. I woke up one morning with a knot of fear in my stomach, so crippling that I couldn't face light, much less day, and so intense that I stayed in bed for 3 days with the shades drawn and the lights out. 3 days. 3 days not answering the phone. 3 days not checking my email. I was disconnected completely from the outside world, and I didn't care. Then, on the morning of the 4th day, there was a knock on my door. Since I hadn't ordered food, I ignored it. The knocking kept up, and I kept ignoring it. I heard the sound of keys rattling in my front door. Slowly, the bedroom door opened, and in the painful light from the doorway, I saw 2 figures of 2 old friends.
"Terry, are you in here?"
They opened up the windows, and I shielded my eyes against the light. They sat down and put their hands on me, gently lifting me up to sit. I don't think I could have done it myself. They stayed for 3 hours. They did the dishes, got me into the shower, helped me pick out clothes, made me an emergency appointment with a therapist that afternoon, and somehow got me there. I honestly don't remember how. "15 minutes into the session, I was staring at the therapist, barely understanding our conversation and feeling like I'd fall down on the floor any second when she said the words,
"Clinical depression."
I felt like I was outside my body, like I was seeing us on TV, but I knew something had finally given. I couldn't go on the way I was without hurting myself more. The therapist told me I was in an emotionally dangerous place, that I would probably need medication before any real work could begin. She gave me the name of a psychiatrist and called to make the first appointment for the next day herself. She gave me her cell phone number, telling me to call if I didn't think I could make it to tomorrow. I looked at her and the number.
Tomorrow? Tomorrow was a million years from now. I wasn't going to make it to the next hour. Forget about tomorrow.
Somehow I did make it to the next day and to my appointment with the psychiatrist. She asked questions, took my blood pressure, and began the long process of finding the right medication for me. There I was, a mental health professional, and I couldn't bring myself to admit that I was suffering from a major clinical depression. That was when I realized that the only way I was going to get through this was to stop pretending, finally, that it wasn't happening. And the only way to stop pretending was to let people know how I felt every day. The first time I did it, God told me to. I heard his voice telling me it was time to share my story, and I obeyed. If then Essence Editor-in-Chief Diane Weathers hadn't sensed what I was going through and asked me to write the piece, I don't know how much longer it would have taken before I really told someone I was depressed, or if I would ever have told anyone before the point where there was no hiding it anymore. In fact, my mom, dad, and sister didn't know what I was going through until I mailed them a draft of the article and wrote a kind of offhand note saying,
I wanted you to see this before it came out.
I didn't even ask for their responses. My mom called immediately.
I'm so sad you didn't feel like you could come to me.
And my sister told me that she too had been through the fire. But I was so used to handling things on my own that I believed telling them would only make them worry.